Good morning from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. The U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry arrived in Baghdad this morning on a surprise visit to Iraq, his first since becoming Secretary of State. And Pope Francis led a Palm Sunday Mass this morning, the first of a week of ceremonies leading to Easter. Right now, I want to talk about one of the most hotly debated police tactics in the country, which was put on trial this week in a federal court in Manhattan. A class action lawsuit against the New York Police Department over its controversial policy of stopping, questioning, and frisking people on the street, a tactic known as stop and frisk. It began on Monday and has unfolded in a dramatic fashion, with whistleblower police officers testifying against the NYPD and plaintiffs who were themselves stopped and frisked breaking down on the stand. On Thursday, in one of the trial's most explosive moments, the court heard a recording of a conversation between a patrolman and his commanding officer about the stop and frisk policy, in which the commanding officer seemed to suggest that skin color can be a deciding factor in who is stopped. The conversation was surreptitiously recorded by the patrol officer, Pedro Serrano, in the South Bronx 40th Precinct. In the conversation, the commanding officer, Deputy Inspector Christopher McCormick, urges Serrano to be more active and conduct more street stops in order to suppress violent crime. They discussed Mott Haven, a particularly crime-prone neighborhood in the Bronx, as an example.
This is about stopping the right people, the right place, the right location.
Okay.
Again, take Mott Haven where we had the most problems.
Right.
And most problems we had there was robberies and grand larcenies.
And who are those people robbing?
The problem was what? Male blacks, and I told you the roll call, and I have no problem telling you this. Male blacks 14 to 20, 21, and I said this at roll call.
Revelations like that have made the stop and frisk trial a major flashpoint in the city this week. It's also become a central issue in what is likely to be the most hotly contested political race of 2013, the New York mayoral race. This will be the city's first mayoral race in 12 years without billionaire Mike Bloomberg spending large sums of his own money to overwhelm his opponents. And as a result, the field is crowded. It's also the best chance Democrats have had of regaining the mayoralty since the last Democrat held office in 1993. New York politics has long been considered sui generis because New York's economy and demographic contours are so different from those of the rest of the country. But as the country has grown more diverse and more dependent on the financial sector, as income inequality skyrockets and more Americans find themselves working low-wage service jobs, the United States finds itself in many ways looking more and more like New York. And many of the political problems we're grappling with now, immigration, the minimum wage, what the post-recession economy should look like, privacy, policing, public health, and more, are issues that will be at the center of New York's mayoral race. And so it is my great pleasure to have with me here four of the Democratic candidates for mayor of New York City. Bill de Blasio, the city's public advocate, which is an elected citywide office. Sal Albanese, former city councilman. Bill Thompson, the former New York controller and Democratic nominee for mayor in 2009. And John Liu, the current city controller. We also reached out to City Council Speaker Christine Quinn, who is also running, but who could not join us today. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
So this trial, I think, is really explosive and I think has really changed the contours of the politics on this issue. And I'm curious what your feeling is about what this means going forward about the stop and frisk policy. How do you my sense is there's broad agreement that the current status quo has to change. Am I right about that?
I think the trial is a huge indictment on the policy itself. I think we all understood that racial profiling was so integral. Just you look at the results. Almost everybody being stopped is black or brown.
Yeah, 80% of stop and frisk.
And no, more than that, something like 87%. And not only that, even in white neighborhoods, it's all minorities that are being stopped and frisked. So, there's no denying that there's racial profiling going on here. Add to the fact that almost everybody who's being stopped, almost 700,000 in 1 year alone, almost everybody being stopped has done absolutely nothing wrong. This is not America. This is not democratic.
It is, I guess, confirmation of a lot of things I've been saying, that this is perhaps a useful policing tool that has been misused and abused, and that has occurred for years. So when you start to stop people based on purely what they look like and who they are, and as we said, more than 90% of the people are black and Hispanic.
Yeah, Sal.
I think it's a useful tool that needs to be improved. For example, I think we need intensive training of police officers on what the appropriate constitutional methodology is for stop and frisk. I think we need to hire more officers, assign them to patrols so that they can interact with the community and build trust. And thirdly, I think we need to regulate, tax, and legalize marijuana. So that's a huge reason. That's
Right.
the large
if you're stopped and frisked and you have marijuana, that's how you get into
marijuana. Exactly. So I think we need to legalize it, tax it, and regulate it. That's what I would do as mayor.
But this idea about useful but overused, I want to explore that idea because I think that's sort of been the line from a lot of people. Christine Quinn has said that before in a previous communication. She called it a useful tactic. Should we just ban the tactic? Should people just not get stopped?
I vote for that, Chris.
I disagree with banning it. It's the policing tactic that has been wildly overused, obviously in many cases used in an unconstitutional manner. Mm-hmm. And look, not only do you need to reform the approach, we need a new police commissioner. And this is a difference that I have certainly with Christine Quinn, who wants to keep Ray Kelly, because Ray Kelly's been the architect of the overuse of stop and frisk. We also need an inspector general, because what we've had in New York City, think about the magnitude here. Hundreds of thousands of more stops a year. There was never a vote on that. Right. There was never a public debate.
Well, what it goes back to, again, is the need for a new mayor. And a mayor who understands.
Well, there's consensus at the table about that.
But also, you brought us all together.
And a new police commissioner.
So, is that a new police commissioner? Is that a shared view?
I've said I would not keep Ray Kelly.
I'm not going to make any decisions about police commissions until I get the job. So, all I can say is that what I do believe is that stop and frisk is a useful tool and it does keep guns off the street. I mean, that's been proven across the country. It does deter weapons, but it's got to be done constitutionally. Cops need more training, intensive training in the academy, Chris.
Easy to say that, Chris.
To improve it.
Easy to say that. First of all, I guess there is consensus that we need a new mayor. There isn't consensus on the issue of stop and frisk. I believe I'm the only one here at this table who believes that stop and frisk should be abolished because the numbers don't bear out the facts. You know, the mayor and the police commissioner have claimed that stop and frisk has saved lives, that it has led to guns being taken off the street. The fact of the matter is that there's been a minimal decrease in the number of murders in New York City, even as stop and frisks have gone up from something like 97,000 a year to 685,000. And, you know, the number of guns that are being taken off the street, it's less than 1 in 1,000 cases. Now, stop and frisk, I don't disagree that it reduces crime. But so would like an 11 p.m. curfew. So would a 10 p.m. curfew. At some point, we have to understand that we live in a democratic society, and people should not be stopped on the street.
Let me interject.
Nothing.
Let me just interject. I think part of the issue here is this sense that there's a quota, right? That it's not just that
there is a quota,
a discretional. This is a deal Polanco. I mean, what's remarkable about this? If people who are watching this are not following this trial, it's kind of amazing because you have these police officers, working police officers, who are so outraged by this, they find it so ridiculous what they're being asked to do, going into their commanding officers, taping them. These tapes. This is Adil Polanco.
The cops don't want to do this.
Adil Polanco testifying on the 20 and 1 quota, which is 20 summons and 1 arrest per month. It was not negotiable. It was either that or you're going to become a Pizza Hut delivery man, was his testimony.
That's a good soundbite.
I know, that is. It's what police officers have said, that you're removing the art of being a police officer from them. You're taking their discretion away. They know what to do. Yeah. The correct oversight should be there, but at the same point, the quota, the indicators, the performance indicators, I think that's the phrase that is used, stop and frisk should be part of that.
I think we have to be very careful about calling for the elimination of a constitutional option that the police have. Camden, New Jersey, for example, half the cops laid off in that city. Gun violence up because the bad guys on the street.
Well, no one's calling to lay off half the police officers.
But if you do what John suggests, eliminate stop, question, and frisk, which is a constitutional option, if done properly, you will have. You
think crime will go up?
More people carrying guns. Absolutely, no doubt about it.
This quota situation has made it impossible for us to continue community policing, because community policing depends on some real communication and respect both ways between police and community. But here's the other thing: the federal courts now, understandably, are getting deeper and deeper.
Well, they're going to render a judgment on this.
Yes. And it could constrain a lot of the NYPD, which means New York City, because we didn't do our own oversight right, we didn't have an inspector general, we may have federal courts starting to do that.
Again, because of bad policy, the federal government is looking at this, because this is a policy that has gone wild, that hasn't been...
Why has it gone wild? Why has... What?
It's all a numbers game.
No, I know it's a number game. Why... What I've seen in the trajectory of this is, this was happening, and it says something, I think, about the way that power works in this city, right? This was happening to every 15-year-old black kid in the Bronx and in Brooklyn and Queens and in Harlem. And
it's creating so much outrage, Chris.
Yes, but why is it taking so long for that outrage to manifest itself? This has been,
as stop and frisks have gone up and up and up in recent years, the outrage is bubbling over to the point where now it's just unacceptable. The amount of division that it has created between police and community members has gone to the point where I believe it's making it less safe for everybody. And meanwhile, it's distracting resources.
In 2009, it wasn't as if it wasn't spoken about and hasn't been spoken about.
You ran in 2009 against Mayor Bloomberg.
But what's occurred over a period of time is the numbers continue to escalate. So in 2011, you get to almost 700,000 stop and frisks, and people go, wait a minute, there's something wrong with this.
There's a tipping point.
There has been an absolute deference to the police commissioner in New York City in a way that we have not seen anywhere else in the country, and this is a big part of the problem. You don't see the President of the United States say to the commander of the Joint Chiefs, do whatever you want. Right. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs, do whatever you want. Here in New York City, the police commissioner has been without oversight or without any kind of reining in, and that's why a policy like this got so far.
Which brings us to the point of an inspector general. There's a push to appoint an inspector general to oversee the police department. I want to play a little bit of sound of Mayor Bloomberg, who's very critical of the idea of an IG overseeing the police. We'll hear that right after we take this break.